Hello students, Chef Andrew here to teach you how to make pasta from scratch. I'll be teaching one just regular plain dough with pepper, right? So the first set, we're going to start with 2 cups of flour. We're going to put that right onto my board. I have a pasta board here. I'm going to make a little fountain, basically, a nice little well in the center of it. Okay. In which I'm going to drizzle about a teaspoon of oil, some salt, and then since I'm doing black pepper in my pasta, I'll add some black pepper. Fresh is the best, not the already ground stuff. And then 2 eggs. Alright, we want to make sure we have a big enough well though, so if it doesn't look like you have a big enough well, make it bigger, add your eggs. And then we're going to incorporate these eggs into the flour as best we can. Your eggs will not take all of the flour. This is due on your environment, how humid it is, how dry the flour is, things like that. But we're going to mix it until all of the flour that can be absorbed is absorbed into the liquid. I'm using very fresh eggs, meaning I bought these at a farmer's market, so the dough is going to be a little more yellower than it would be if I bought normal store-bought eggs. Alright, the egg does not matter, it's completely up to you. You can also experiment with the types of flour you want to use. To get a better texture, better flavors, change the flavor, change the textures, things like that. At a certain point, the fork's going to be pretty useless, so we're going to set that aside, and we're going to start using our fingers. Okay. I'm basically just going to lift and fold the moist part of the dough over the dry flour and incorporate it very gently for now. I don't want my fingers getting too sticky and gummed up. And you're just working it very gently for now. I don't want to build up too much gluten yet until we've got the dough situated with the liquid. At a certain spots, you can tell once it starts becoming less wet and more tacky, you can start applying more pressure to get the dough to be more cohesive and uniform. Putting a little extra weight behind your pushes. I don't want to waste anything, so all these little tacky bits that are still around the board, I want to grab those and try to incorporate that into the dough. But at a certain point, your dough is going to stop accepting flour. I think my dough is about right at that point now. So I'm just going to knead it for a few minutes until the dough ball becomes nice and smooth and uniform. See, my dough didn't accept all this extra flour. Okay. So I don't want to push this in there because it won't work. It'll make a dry dough. We want a nice, almost not quite tacky dough is what we're looking for. And you're going to be doing this for a few minutes. Your hand and your wrist, they're going to get tired. Switch up, alternate between your hands. So we're getting there. We're seeing a lot of uniform pieces coming together. It's still a little cracking here and there. That just means I just got to keep working it until the dry and the wet are thoroughly mixed together and homogenized. Okay. Now, you'll notice it's a little bit more yellow than what you've probably seen before, especially from the stuff that's inside the boxes at the stores. Again, I'm using fresh organic eggs straight from a farm, not from the grocery stores. All right. Again, I'm just going to keep kneading. Until I have a nice, smooth dough. And as you're mixing it, it's harder to see on the video, but I'm seeing my black pepper come through in specks, so that when I cook this, I'll get a nice black pepper bite on the pasta. It'll go really well with a cream sauce. Alright, I'm getting to the point where it's really looking very uniform across everything. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten it into a disc. It's nice and smooth. It's a little lumpy here and there, but that's fine. That'll be helped. But there's no big specks of flour that I can see, just the pepper. If there are big specks of flour, then we might have an issue when we're rolling out the dough later on. Okay. But I'm going to put this into a disc. And it needs to rest for 30 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to put this into a plastic bag, or we're going to wrap it in plastic, whatever you want to do at home. But it needs to be wrapped up so that the air doesn't allow it to dry. Okay? And then I'm just going to set that aside and let it rest for 30 minutes before I do anything else with it. Alright? I'm going to clean this up and then I'll be right back. Alright, I am back. It's been over 30 minutes. I wanted to give it a little extra time. But our dough looks really good, and so we're ready to roll it out. For this, what we're going to do is we're actually going to divide it in half, because I don't want to roll the whole thing at once. Keep the other half, make sure it's still in the plastic so it doesn't dry out. I'm going to get a little flour. I'm going to coat both sides of it. Take a little flour, I'm going to put it in our roller here. I'm not going to be rolling these out by hand because I don't want to be here forever. That's why machines were invented. Alright, I'm going to flatten it out a bit so it can fit into the machine. And I'm going to start on the highest setting, which is number 7 on all these machines. And I'm just going to feed it through very slowly. And your dough will begin flattening itself out. Alright. At this point we're looking really good. You can see it's smoothed out really nice, so without pulling or cracking or breaking anything. You can see the black specks inside of it where the black pepper is. I'm not going to leave this like this and just continue rolling it. I'm actually going to fold it into a trifold. So because what I want to do is I want to get a nice symmetrical shape out of this thing, so that when we do decide to cut it into pasta, all the pasta is relatively the same length and size. Okay, very carefully feeding it through. Okay. Another book fold. This is going to be the last time for this. And I'm going to send it through this direction. Alright, so we're looking pretty good now. I'm going to send this one through one more time on this setting, just to help get it, make sure it's nice and uniformly stretched. It'll go a little bit easier this time. Alright, and then I'm going to go down one step to number 6. With the idea being that for every step that you do, you at least pass it twice through the machine. This allows it to relax itself between rolls. Okay, so this is number 6. Okay. All right, down to number 5. Four. Okay, we're looking pretty good. You can see more of the black specks from the pepper now showing through. All right, nice yellow pasta as well. If you don't have this machine at home, you can work in smaller batches, like dividing the dough ball into quarters or eighths, and then rolling out your pasta with a rolling pin. It'll take a lot longer, but what you're looking for is a really thin pasta. Most pastas will stop on 3, setting number 3 on the machine. If you want like a fettuccine, linguine, or whatnot. If you're looking for angel hair, then you would probably go down to 1 on this. A good gauge would probably be to use a, I don't know, like a paper plate or something that's very, very thin but not too thin, to help gauge on how thin your pasta should be before you roll it out. I am not going to spend time doing the whole rollout by hand, just because I really don't want to be here forever, because it does take a while. Alright, but this sheet is done now. Like, I do not want to roll this any more thinner. I want a linguine type pasta. Alright, so what we're going to do now is, I'm not going to cut it by hand. Again, we have a special machine here that does it for us. Alright, so I'm just going to add the attachment onto it. Alright, but I do not want my pasta to be, this long. It is actually really, really long. So I'm going to cut it in half. Alright, and I think this is a good length for a pasta. Okay, so Again, I want a linguine fettuccine style, so I'm going to put it in the thicker side here. And I'm just going to roll it through very, very carefully. Okay? And then as it comes out the bottom, we now have our pasta. Alright? And then the best thing to do for here is to get a sheet pan, drape it, lay it out, let it dry a little bit. If you want to hold it overnight, that'd be perfect. Just I would recommend freezing it. Alright? So what you could do a little pasta board is, if you're going to freeze it, I recommend dusting it in a little bit of flour. Alright? And then making little nests out of it. So you just twirl it. Alright? And then you would just freeze it like that. Alright? And be perfect to cook it the next day. If you're going to cook this right away, again, same thing, just flour it, lay it out if you want strips, lay it out in nests, it's up to you. Cut this excess away. Again, nice pasta. Make sure they're all separated. Dust it with a little bit of flour. And then you can just pasta nest it. Again, freeze it overnight. Be perfect for the next day. As long as it's dry enough, you may set it out and let it dry by itself. If you're going to let it dry by itself out in the open, I would recommend hanging it. There are special things you could buy that allow you just to hang the pasta up like this, and it'll dry. But just beware, if it's not dry enough, that you're looking at probably a lot of mold and bacteria to start growing, and you don't really want that. Okay? Definitely do not let it dry in a pile on a board like this. If you're going to let it dry in a pile, it's fine. Again, as long as it's dry enough. Make sure you put it on a wire rack or a cooling rack, like a cookie sheet that you would cool cookies on. That allows the air to circulate around it. If you just put it on paper or onto a board, the moisture will develop on the bottom of the pasta and it'll turn really mushy down there and won't cook properly. Alright, and then again we'll have that mold bacteria type issue kind of going on here. Alright. Otherwise, that is how you make homemade pasta from scratch. So, these only take about 2 to 3 minutes to cook in boiling hot water. Make sure you salt the water. And then immediately toss it with your sauce and serve it. Do not let this cook in a sauce. Do not let this sit in a liquid for too long, because this is very, very has a very gentle structure and will fall apart very easily in lots of liquid. Alright, if you're going to be cooking a pasta dish in the sauce, I recommend getting the dried pasta in the stores. That way you're not overcooking and making it mushy, because the delicate nature of fresh pasta is what is the big benefit to making homemade pasta. Alright, so again, enjoy making your pasta at home. It's relatively easy, as you saw. It only takes roughly altogether about less than an hour. Okay, 30 minutes to let the pasta set after you make it. Only takes about 5 to 10 minutes to put it together, and 2-3 minutes to cook it. All right. Otherwise, enjoy your fresh homemade pasta.